is going to get loud. The working musician's ultimate guide to striking a new path through today's music industry. With your host, Paul Nikolas.
Yeah, this is going to get loud. Woo! Yes, it is going to get loud in here. This is the inaugural episode of this amazing new show that we have on EnterTalk Radio, brought to you by our good friends over at ShowSlinger. ShowSlinger is an amazing app that just brings the world of booking right to your fingertips. Whether you are an artist or whether you own or do booking management or have a venue, this is the app that you need to have. And I'm very proud and honored to announce our new show host, Paul Varlamov. Hey, Paul, are you there, sir?
I am. Thank you so much.
Yes. Although I did the announcement, I just wanted to kind of, be your herald into this whole world of radio. You are an accomplished musician. You are actually in the Caribbean right now, about ready to start a gig right after this show, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm actually doing over 210 shows this year, so very, very active for sure.
Wow, man. You're like, one of the busiest touring guys, and you have time to run an amazing company that's out there making a difference in how musicians get paid. So that's pretty awesome. We also have our producer extraordinaire, my partner in crime over here, the COO of EnterTalk Radio, Mr. Paul Berezetsky.
How's it going?
Hey. So we are here in the studios over in Miramar, right across. We're like the Top Gun of radio here. We're right across the street from the Miramar airfield. And then, of course, you are in the Caribbean, but your company's out of Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, that's correct. We're headquartered in Midtown Atlanta, right next to Georgia Tech, actually. So we try and steal some of their recent graduates to work with us when we can.
Yeah, and I think that's awesome. We do the same thing with UCSD. In fact, our head of production, who you can connect with from time to time, is Megan, and she is a UCSD, almost finishing up. She's got a few little classes here, but she's going to be doing that. She's also a musician. So we're a company by musicians, for musicians, about the music industry. So it's pretty cool. And that kind of comes to our topic today that we're going to be talking about. We were just chatting before the show kicked in, and we really were bringing up some relevant things. So at this particular point, Paul, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you and actually switch hats and be a guest on your show.
Okay, that sounds great. It's awesome to have you here. I know I was on the show several months back, and we had a great discussion about what's going on in the music industry. But today we wanted to keep it a little bit light and generalized and talk about what's going on out there in the clubs and on the streets, and talk about how artists can basically get folks to their shows, how artists can be seen and heard in the clubs. I want to talk about a little bit about your experience and Paul's experience, and then I'll follow up with a little bit of what I've been doing. So tell me a little bit about how you got started and what you had to do to get folks into the clubs and listening to you guys specifically. Now, I know it's a broad topic, but tell me your initial thoughts on that.
Well, it started back in the day in December. It was a cold day, and I was bored. No, I'm just joking. I won't go there. But actually, music's been part of my life, and it's been, even going back to when I was a kid. I wanted to be Elvis, little half Filipino, half Caucasian Elvis running around. So, it was always part of my life. And when I was in my teens, like a lot of folks, I decided I want to make a rock band to meet chicks, and I did that with my buddies. We did a Beatles kind of cover. Well, we only had the Beatles definitive Beatles fake book, so that's all we can do is we didn't have YouTube back then. For you young folks that have access to all this great how to play a song type of video interactivity, we didn't have that. We didn't even have VHS.
What's a fake book?
Oh, you don't even know what a fake book is?
No.
Oh, that tells you how young Paul is. You know what a fake book is, right, Paul?
Yes, more or less. And so you guys are this is great because we're going to segue in later in the show talking about, like, you guys are talking about the old school, and then we're going to kind of bring it to the new school. So definitely exactly. Share your thoughts and experiences on that. Yeah,
fake book basically was somebody wrote out what they thought the chords were, and they publicized it.
So basically what the internet is today?
Pretty much so. So the internet is just one giant fake book.
Oh my God, it's terrible.
Yeah, so, but yeah, I just did that, and then I was playing bass, so I was Paul McCartney, and I was trying, you know what, I could sing and play bass at that time, but I was playing such rudimentary stuff. It was, it wasn't like I was doing any funk. We were just basically playing. I was just playing the same rhythm as the guitar player, and it just it kind of grew into that, and then I started to realize that I was in multiple bands, and I was more of a producer or a manager at that time, so I kind of moved into the world of booking. I was a talent agent at the tender age of 16, working with acts like the Bus Boys and Run DMC came across my way, and a few other different, like at that time the Chili Peppers. Can you imagine? I was offered the Chili Peppers for $500 to book the Chili Peppers for $500. They were.
Are you kidding me? Now that is a story we need to hear more of. And Run DMC, how did that come across your plate there?
Well, none of the groups were well known at all. So I love funk music, and we were working with Roger Troutman and the band Zap, the guy who did the voice for California Love on Tupac. So we were doing shows with them, and we were offered these bands as openers, and we're like, who are they? We don't want these and I'm about 16 years old, cocky son of a bitch, right?
Red Hot Chili Peppers, your name is too long.
Yeah.
And you're wondering why this bass player is named after an insect. I don't know if I'm going to manage these guys.
Well, we were told that they were a funk band, and when you listen to them at those days, they were more of a punk, flavored group, and I'm like, this is not funk. Basically, I wasn't going to be able to sell it, so my crowd was more ethnic based, and the Chili Peppers weren't going to appeal to that. And then hip hop was rap was just a little too outside the mainstream at that particular point, and I was doing a lot more mainstream, so that's kind of how that fun stuff came about. But it was a good time, and I went to the behind the scenes at that point, put out an album with a company or a group. The company was Elise Records, and the band was Fourth Phase, and we actually hit the Cashbox charts. I think it was somewhere in the 80s that we were hit, like either 84 or 86. I can't remember. I didn't pay that much attention to try to keep that information because I thought that was just going to be a small footnote on my illustrious career as the big time producer. Didn't quite work out that way. So that's
It's actually interesting. I was just going to jump in and say, if you're an emerging artist, you're somebody who's starting out, even if you're not an artist and you really want to get into the music industry, you should join a band, because just like you found out that you really worked better as a producer or behind the scenes, some people are performers, some people get in behind the scenes. But once you join a band and you start playing some shows, you're going to figure out where your passion really lies, and then you can start making your way. But at least you have that experience of being on stage, and part of
that was always a big plus for me, and that always stayed with me. I played in a heavy metal band, I played in a couple of R&B funk bands, and we were all over the place. So that was the other thing I learned too, was don't pigeonhole yourself. Really try to spread your wings and kind of do some different sounds. And I think that was the same for Paul, right, Paul? Paul B, PB. We'll call him PB because it's too many. We got too many damn Pauls around here, man. We're just
this is going to get confusing.
We have like 2 or 3 of them. So,
Uh-oh.
Oh, there we go. We're back. Are you back there, Paul? Nikolas?
Yep, you bet.
Okay, you kind of stepped away for it, like 2 seconds. That was a quick one. But I think we were through to my partner in crime over here, Mr. PB.
I was thinking it's interesting when we were talking about the fake books. I got into guitar in high school. I was like about 15. I was hanging out at a friend's house that had a guitar, and it was the first time I saw an electric guitar like up close and personal. I put my hands on it. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. I got to get me one of these. and I was, just fixated on it. And my friend is like, no, don't get a guitar. You don't need, the world doesn't need any more guitars. You should get a bass. We could, then we could jam. And I was like, bass? Who wants to play bass?
Bass is for losers.
Bass is for losers. And I was like, no.
I resemble that remark.
No, everyone always says that so much. We need more bass players. We need more bass players. And then the guys they're just like you, oh man, I don't want to play bass. That's for the guys who can't play guitar. But That's wrong.
No. And then years later, I realized that, my friend at like 15 years old was like, wise beyond his years. Like I should have listened to him back then. I did pick up the bass later on, but it's not my primary instrument anymore. And I'm glad about the guitar and all that. But later on, I realized that if you're a bass player, you always have gigs. It's actually a super cool instrument.
Yeah, that's right.
Man, but there's something magical about, the first time you get into that real club that's got the real big subs and you're doing that sound check and you just hit that low note and the stage just shakes.
Yeah.
That's a really, really cool thing. I mean, I remember that from my first quote unquote real club gig. This was in Athens, Georgia, where you have a lot of alternative greats, REM, Widespread Panic is still up there and that kind of thing. But I just remember that sound check, bass player hits that and boom. Yeah. B-52s, you bet. Absolutely.
And it's really a cool way the way it blends kind of the guitar and the drums. You're sort of like in between the two worlds. And later on, I've learned guitar and I've learned somewhat drums. So I really like playing bass now. But at that time I was too young. I was just Guns N' Roses videos were like all over MTV nonstop, so just like obsessed with Slash, and I just wanted that whole sexy Les Paul guitar thing, and I didn't listen to my friend and I started playing the guitar. And the other interesting thing is this was like 94, 95. This is right when like the internet kind of started going more or less into the commercial world. So I don't know what fake books are, because that's right when you kind of started being able to download crappy tablature off the internet. So I was kind of doing that.
Yeah, that's pretty much a fake book was music with lyrics and then chords above the lyrics. That's why they call them fake books, and they usually weren't they weren't musical staffs and everything else.
But they were published by kind of semi-legit publishers.
Yeah. Hal Leonard. I think that one we had was a Hal Leonard. But there's a number of different types of fake.
But it was
books.
Kind of just open to someone's interpretation of what the arrangements are.
Well, yeah. What they would do is they would instead of taking it predominantly. I mean, they could have been the what the band said the four chords were, but you just put the chord above. You didn't have the notation of it all, so you didn't know the actual. You just kind of played whatever you thought the chord should sound.
If you don't know what a major seventh is, then you don't know, right?
It could be a major.
Well, I'll
seventh.
tell you, I still play a lot of cover gigs, just here and there to get out there, have some fun, and all that kind of thing. And so I see a lot of those on the internet, and it's so funny because nobody actually listens to the original song when they do that. So you end up with people's bizarre interpretations. So you literally, it's just faster if you sit with the song in front of you and just, hit the roots, figure out the chord from there, write it down, boom, you're good to go, instead of trying to decipher somebody's crazy, guerrilla chords on that thing.
Yeah, we've had that. Being in a band, me and Paul being in a band together, we've had that share of debates. Like, wait a second, the ultimate guitar tab said this, but I hear this, and you think it's that. No, it's a... It's tough to break up a band.
and now there's so many YouTube tutorials. It's a completely different world. You could just copy someone's. You could watch how someone does it in a video and just copy them. So the art of listening to a song it's going to be, I don't know, it might be on the way out.
Yeah, well,
goodness, I think I was showing my age right there. Then,
yeah,
yikes.
Right. Well, actually, I remember the technology that was really advanced was being able to slow a track down so you can actually pick out the parts, and then you actually had to put it up to the right key. But,
yeah, exactly.
That's crazy talk. That's crazy talk. But that's how you got started back in the day, and I think that some of that the art of discovering music is lost in this current day and age of show me everything all at my fingertips.
Yeah, I kind of managed to fall in between. Where I was already kind of able to easily get tab from the internet, but it was still not to the point where I still had to sit with the song and listen to it and see how it matched up. So I still got a little bit of that, but kids today, I don't know. Or like even in bands I'm now, I need to learn a bunch of covers quick, and I don't have time to sit there and, just try to do it by ear. I'll just find a YouTube tutorial of something, and, it's just to get things done, but I know I'm not really helping myself develop my musical ear that much with that.
Well, there's rehearsal, and sometimes you just have to get things done. Let me ask you a question then. So when you guys were in a band together, taking it from learning your craft, learning the chords, learning music, how did you guys get shows? Was there one person in the band who was the ringleader like a lot of artists have? Was it a collaborative effort? What were you guys doing to get the shows and to get your name out there?
Mostly for the get the shows, I was the instigator. Actually, our first gig was I was hired as a DJ, and I just didn't want to DJ anymore. So I talked the company that would hire me as a DJ to let me play in between little DJ sets. Paul and I would go in and do kind of a duo thing. I would sing and he would play guitar, and that seemed to go over pretty well. But we realized that we were ugly mofos, and we brought in these two beautiful, very talented
we're
ladies.
Ugly chuds.
Yeah, so we figured that the two beautiful young ladies that we brought in would be more attractive, and so we started playing more gigs that way. And then we had delusions of grandeur about being a recording band. And then we started getting gigs where we were actually paying other members. We were basically paying like very talented keyboard players and drummers to kind of come in and play with us, and essentially started playing some pretty bigger gigs. So it was pretty fun.
So, yeah, that's actually interesting. You guys realized that you had to have the ultra hot, attractive people in there to get traction.
Yeah. Well, we just wanted to see ultra hot, attractive people while we were playing. It was just
it's a way to get hot people to hang out with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think a lot of people out there would relate to that. So, in the next segment, let's talk a little bit more about being at the show, what you guys did to get the fans' attention. What you guys did to get your name out there with the folks that were actually in the crowd, and what you could do to be remembered after the show back in the day. And then later we'll wrap it up a little bit more, what you can do in the digital age to do the same thing. Does that sound good to you guys?
Yeah, it sounds real good, man. It sounds good. This is a good flow, and I think it's very educational for anybody who's listening. Hopefully our little delve into being a band before we decided to launch a radio network, we can be some assistance to them.
Well, I think you guys have quite a bit of experience there, and we're going to expand on all these topics. This is just kind of a general first show, but we're going to get really into the nitty-gritty in subsequent shows. So I appreciate having you guys on, and we're going to look forward to the next segment. So right now, this is Going to Get Loud. I'm your host, Paul Nikolas on EnterTalk Radio, and we will see you right back here in a minute or two. Thanks for listening.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on EnterTalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hey, it's Tracy Smith
and Beth Venus
of Girls Talk Rock right here on the EnterTalk Radio Network.
Every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific.
Okay, Beth, they know that, but we want you to know that the industry pro's choice is Silver Tiger Production.
STP is a full-service production agency offering sound, lighting, installations, talent buying, staffing, backline equipment rental, and sales. Kapow!
It's everything in the entertainment performance industry. It's all that. SilverTigerProduction.com.
This is going to get loud. The working musician's ultimate guide to striking a new path through today's music industry. With your host, Paul Nikolas.
All right, welcome back, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. We are here with Florentino and Paul, the CEO and COO of EnterTalk Radio, who have graced us with their presence to tell us a little bit more about what it's like getting started back in the day and how they were able to get traction. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about how things are going in the digital age in the next segment. So thanks again, guys, for being on. So tell me a little bit more about, as you guys were getting started in your band, you got everybody together, you learned your tracks, you honed your craft. Now it's time to get out into the clubs. What did you guys do to specifically approach booking agents, and how did you keep folks there in the seats? What was your angle to stand out?
Interesting question. Well, essentially, I just looked for opportunities, and I'm a biz dev guy by nature, so I looked at how we can, kind of get into different clubs and kind of leverage from one club to another. And there was actually a club called The Stage, which eventually became known as Atomic, and they were, they basically were looking at filling nights with their weekdays, and they had some open slots, and basically it was pretty easy to ask the owner to come in. Had a great sound system, and was a real stage, and it was down in the Gas Lamp in San Diego, which is kind of the nightlife spot. And we went in there. We thought we were going to change the world with bringing people in. We found that it was very, very difficult to actually get a crowd in there.
Let me guess, you told them you were going to pack it out.
No, I didn't tell them that. I mean, I wasn't going to lie, but I thought we were going to have, more than, a handful of people there, because I thought the club would automatically have, because of where it was at, the location where it was at, would automatically have a collection
built-in draw.
Basically built-in draw, and that was not the case.
It was actually it's a downtown, the very popular district in San Diego, the Gas Lamp district. But it's a very touristy thing, and it's a bunch of restaurants and bars and some nightclubs. And there's always people around, so you'd think it's easy to pack, but it's a very different vibe from like a rock band kind of scene. It's mostly tourists, mostly drinkers, food, kind of just
And then some part of it was the time frame too. We would be the early shift. They would bring a DJ in after the bands, because it was mostly just a transitional piece from when the club opened up to when they would kick in the DJ, which would be like a 10 o'clock time frame. So, we didn't quite have that later shift, but we essentially, we played for free. That was a very realistic proposition, because we were part original, we were part cover, and the covers sounded like originals. We never did a song the way it was originally done. Just one of my pet peeves about me, not saying that, like, I love tribute bands and I love bands that can really emulate a good cover. But for me, I always, if I'm going to do something, I wanted it to be a little bit more of who we were. So we would take like rock songs and turn them into funk songs, and take funk songs or slow songs and make them rocky. Like we did a rock version of Fever. That was kind of interesting. I like when people mix it up like that. I think the thing is that if you're going to, everyone is of course free to do their own thing, but if you're going to deviate from the original, really make it your own. Don't kind of go halfway, go all in and make it your own. Yeah. Everyone's heard such cool renditions of their favorite songs doing that thing. And so let me ask you this. So when you were doing that,
what percentage was covers, what percentage was original? Were you an original band that just happened to play a few covers to keep the crowd around, or were you a cover band that happened to throw some originals in to try and get your name out there?
60-40?
Yeah, 60-40, yeah.
Covers to originals.
And then, like I said, almost all the covers were a reimagination of those tracks. We're kind of a funk rock band, so.
So let me ask you this too, because I've done the same thing as you guys when I was on tour with my own band. We were an original band, and to make ends meet, just like everybody else, we would have to do some partial cover shows here and there. And I don't know, did you guys feel the same way as me? Like when you were doing covers, it was great. It was a lot of fun. You did your best work, but when you did your originals, that energy just really hit the roof, and you really started to shine. Did you guys feel that same way?
For us, I think it was. I think it's a song.
It depended on the song. We had one original that always had people just lose it. They loved it. It was a really like heavy rocker.
It was kind of a funk rocker.
Funk rocker with our girl lead singer kind of going crazy, and people loved that one. Yeah, so somewhere we'll bring that one back out, but we just never, we recorded other ones that we thought were a little bit more pop centric. But that one always got the crowd going. But I think it really was the song and the energy of the songs, and sometimes it was just the crowd and the timing. So for us, because we treated every song we did like an original. It was, and then we were playing, some of the stuff we would write, some of it, we wanted to empower the ladies to be more of their own voice, so it came off authentically. So they did a lot of the actual melody and, all the lyric writing. So we kind of, I think I wrote one song in there, which got vetoed quite often. It was too R&B for everybody. Yeah. So
that's part of the democratic process of the band. There, some are top-down, heavy-handed dictatorships, and some are true democracies. It sounds like you guys were a democracy there.
We were a combination of both. If you ask some of the other members that were in the band, I was a little bit more of a dictator. We
were an oligopoly.
Yeah, I'm just been around for a long time, so I just didn't have a whole lot of patience for what I would consider immaturity. So I just was like, you might think things work that way, but they don't, kind of thing.
It's an extremely tough deal. With my own band, Foxtrot November, when we toured around, this is right after I graduated college, and I'm not going to say when because you'll know my age exactly. No, I'm just kidding. But I wrote all the songs.
You could have been Doogie Howser, though, man. Graduated at 11.
Yeah, I wish. I would have had my own show by the time I was, 10?
Yeah, right.
But I wrote and recorded everything, and then I brought in people who were essentially hired guns, but I couldn't pay them. So how do you keep an act together like that? You have to kind of have a very heavy-handed approach to something like that, or everyone just doesn't feel invested. It's something that we'll explore on a later show in detail, but it's having different structures of the organization. It's very important to know where each person fits into the puzzle and what their well-defined responsibilities are. But I know when people are younger, they just tend to kind of have at it and figure it out later.
Well,
we'll hopefully decode some of that.
Yeah, I think like one of the challenges that we faced, we had a very young drummer, talented, but he had a lot of growing to do. But he was also I know everything kind of guy, and good guy. But I would butt heads with him. Paul wouldn't put up with it. He was just like if he just. He didn't have a lot of tolerance to deal with it.
I would just brood silently in the corner.
Bass players never do that.
He's the guitar player in this one. He'd be that silent, brooding guitar player. Just wouldn't have to, I could tell when he was just like at practices, he would just shut down.
Because Tino was, always giving people second chances and another run at it. And sometime out of these, I was like, dude, this kid needs to go. And he's like, no, give him another chance.
But ironically, He thought I was the guy that was trying to get him out, and Paul was this support mechanism. It's pretty funny.
That will always happen. So question for both of you. So you're now playing these gigs in that district. You're doing some covers, you're doing some originals. What kind of things did you employ to really hook the audience, either from the stage or afterwards, whether it was keeping them there with certain types of merch or chatting them up or engaging them. How did you guys engage them in that time before digital was really the big thing? What did you find worked? What did you find did not work?
Going back in the day, so this was when we were doing our band together, this was the digital age.
Yeah, this was fairly recent.
Yeah, but when I was younger and I was playing in metal bands and stuff like that, what we found was mostly. And I'm going to throw this out there because it makes a lot of sense. It came from an interview I did with Ken Cragen, who was one of the most iconic managers of all time. We just tried to put, something that was going to be awe-inspiring. So, like when I was in the metal band, the guitar player would play Johnny Be Good behind his back. So I thought, well, if he's going to play it behind his back, I should learn to play this track behind my back. And then we'd play that Johnny Be Good in the kind of the kind of the nature of rock and roll, like Led Zeppelin, because we're a metal band, and so we're doing the whole stick. You dress up and you put that that would be our grand finale thing, and people would just go crazy because we were playing behind our backs. I'm playing the same blues riff, so it's not like it was uberly complicated.
So easy to impress people back in the 80s.
Yeah, it was. Hey! Don't give my dates away. No, yeah,
we just had to have hair like Flock of Seagulls and some cool torn acid wash jeans. You're good to go.
No, dude, spandex, brother, spandex. Showing the package.
Okay, that's before my time, but that was that's hardcore 80s.
Well, actually, I was kind of the minority rocker. I would wear big giant balloon baggies. They were kind of like MC Hammer style. But the other guys would wear the spandex. Though I have worn spandex before, and I did have the big giant hair. I mean, I had hair that was like all the way down to the middle of my back. Which, if you've seen,
no offense to the spandex, but I hope to never see that again.
Yes. Hey, well, if guys start adopting yoga pants,
skinny jeans are almost there.
Pretty much so. Not as bad though.
Not as bad.
Yeah. So, but yeah.
Well, I've got it worse than everyone. I'm on an island right now with a ton of people from Europe, and it's a lot worse than spandex. You've got so
the Speedos,
the hammocks, the banana hammocks.
Yeah, you got the Speedos. Yeah, exactly. I'll leave it there. But yeah. So what specifically were you guys doing to kind of engage people? I'm always interested to see what other bands deploy in their bag of tricks to get noticed, to be heard, and to kind of get out there above the noise.
Well, I think the main thing is you have to have a shtick. We did a show. I'm going to get off our tip for a second, but we did a show with Pitbull, one of our sponsors. It's called Rock the Dock, and they have their loading dock, and they bring out bands to kind of play on this loading dock. And there was one band, the Schizophonics is the name of the band, and the lead singer was like Iggy Pop, and
Iggy Pop off his meds.
Yeah, off his meds, and it was playing guitar, and he was insane on stage. And literally, when he came off, we interviewed him, and he was talking about that, and I was like, man, dude, I was like afraid for you. Like, I thought you were going to hurt yourself at one point, and you didn't. He'd be throwing the guitar around while he's playing it, and it was just amazing. The microphone never dropped. He never hurt himself. He never crashed into the drums. I thought a number of times. He said that was their shtick, was that people stayed around because they were waiting for the train wreck. And it never came.
Interesting.
You were waiting for the train wreck, and it never came. And you did, and it was an amazing. I love those guys. Those guys were awesome.
It's like,
but if that's the
NASCAR.
deal, then now you're telling me that this guy actually sits around his house going buck crazy, doing all of these moves so that he doesn't drop the mic or have any other accidents on stage. I mean, you have to rehearse that. That's not just something that happens.
I think it's kind of. It is a little bit. I think he has probably bit the dust a couple
maybe
times.
He's crashed enough times to learn what not to do.
What not to do. 'Cause, I mean, it wasn't like there was nothing choreographed. But my point being is that shock and awe in a good way can definitely make a difference when you stand out. And that's what I mentioned by Ken Cragen. One of the things that he did was he said, you want to make a big splash, and you want to capture people's attention right off the bat, and then you'll create a memory. So as he's going through this, he does a class over at UCLA, and as he's doing this, all of a sudden a marching band walks in and starts playing, going up and down the class aisles.
That's good.
And and it captures your attention. And so I think one of the things that people can do is music and great performance of music is not enough. You've got to have something that speaks to people. And Madonna's a perfect example, not necessarily the greatest musician, not necessarily the greatest music, but in her time, she stood out and made an impact. Now, you could have both, don't get me wrong, but if you really want to kind of cut through the noise, you need something that's gonna that will wake people up, from you.
What Tina was trying to say is that he was wearing a cone bra on stage with their band.
That's pretty much.
That's how we captured it.
You guys are just actively trying to give me nightmares tonight. I don't even know what's going on.
Spandex.
I'm going to wake up in a cold sweat. But that speaks to a lot of artists out there, because I can just hear the artists listening right now saying, well, yeah, but I'm a serious artist. My songs are deep and meaningful, and this, that, and the other. I want to let the music shine through, and it's all about the art, which is great. So my question to you, though, is how much does the art depend on the gimmick, or vice versa?
It's about marrying that into the art. So, for example, perfect example is Jerry Lee Lewis. Jerry Lee Lewis, whether he is your favorite killer or not, or however you want to look at it, he had that look. Same thing with I just had his name on the tip of my tongue. Jerry Lee Lewis patterned himself after Little Richard. All these guys had a shtick. Same thing with James Brown. I mean, different musical artists that have that. Just getting up there and playing music. No one, especially now in this day and age where live performance is got to be the way you
look at Lady Gaga. That's the perfect example. I mean, nobody would pay her any mind if she didn't look like
craziness.
Well, I can't even describe the way she looks like, because it changes every 10 seconds.
Yeah, so she's
actually, while I said that, she was changing outfits.
right. So that's all part of it. And even just imagine if Led Zeppelin got up there and just stood on stage and played guitar and bass and sang, and they didn't really give you that show, and you didn't see Robert Plant arching his back while he's singing a song and having his shirt wide open and showing off his chest hair. And there's always that kind of thing that has to be there. Muddy Waters, he had his ladies man shtick. So every one of them have that. So, it is important to find out where you are and your uniqueness in the world.
Well, and that's an interesting point, and we can chat about that in the next segment, but as an artist, I think my personal feeling is that you have to find that one thing or two things within you that's very, very unique that you can display to the world. You're not being fake. You're not acting, which I know a lot of artists are kind of against, but it's you amplified.
Exactly. Yep,
and I think that
perfect description of it.
Yeah, and I think the artists need to get comfortable with that. And so that's a lot of what we're going to be addressing on this show, is coming out of your head and learning how to address these things in a different way. So we're going to get into that a little bit more in the next segment, but certainly in subsequent shows. This is Paul Nikolas. I'm here with Florentino and Paul of EnterTalk Radio, and we will be back in a couple of minutes. Thanks for tuning in.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on EnterTalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on EnterTalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Girls are talking rock again.
And people are listening.
Today we're talking bands.
Let's talk promotion. Red Giant Promo, graphics, EPKs, video, photos, social media, and brand building using content marketing.
But let's talk studio at CCMA, which is events, rehearsal, tour prep, piano, guitar, voice, rock band, lessons, workshops, and clinics. Yeah!
Both proud sponsors of Girls Talk Rock.
Well, get the lowdown on these services and contact me, Tracy, at girlstalkrock.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
This is going to get loud. The working musician's ultimate guide to striking a new path through today's music industry. With your host, Paul Nikolas.
Welcome back, everybody. I am Paul Nikolas. This is the first show. I'm happy that you're joining us. We've got Florentino and Paul, the CEO and COO of EnterTalk Radio, joining us, and we're chatting about the music industry, how things were back in the day and how things are shifting to digital. So I wanted to ask you guys a little bit, since you've lived that era and seen that big seismic shift in the industry. What are just your general thoughts on how it affected you as an emerging artist or a young band in the mid to late 90s? What were the things that stood out in your mind as being extraordinarily significant?
You want to take this one, Paul, since you were a kid of the 90s?
I know it's a big question, but
I'm not really. We're probably about the same age. I didn't really wasn't in the scene so much in the 90s. I was just kind of getting into music back then. I don't know. Like I was mostly like, me and my friends were. I was on the East Coast, and we were kind of mostly into jam band stuff. So that was a little bit of an offshoot of probably of where, the rest of the music industry were going.
For me, actually, I was on the technological side. I was working with companies that were looking at how to basically develop platforms and ways to discover artists online. I started off with MCI. I don't know if you remember that, the long distance company.
I remember.
Oh, yeah.
And we had 1-800-MUSIC now. So it wasn't quite online, but it was really targeted towards how you can access music without having to go to a music store. So it was one of the first things. And you'd call up this number. They would, you'd listen to like a small portion of a track, and then if you liked it, you bought it. You bought singles. It was still, physical products. And then I was trying to put together a program where you would actually go to a store, and you would have a machine that would build you your own compilation CD. So I was working with them on that, and it didn't get off the ground at that particular point, and it was heartbreaking because I put everything into it, and it just kind of, I really thought this was the next wave, and then part of that whole thing was I said, at some point people are going to be able to download music from their homes, and we need to prepare for that. This was
oh my goodness, that sounds like crazy talk.
They said I was crazy.
Yeah, they did. They said I was crazy because it was all dial-up stuff. It was 14.4 modems at that particular point. But
so it took like 5.5 minutes to get onto AOL.
Yeah. Basically that was it, and so and those transition points, the future was there. I had the first hard drive music player that was actually made by Compaq. The computer company Compaq, they had a 4 gig hard drive music player. We thought, oh my gosh, how is this even possible? And I had a prototype of that because at that point from MCI I transitioned to another company called Play Incorporated, and Play Incorporated made video and audio software hardware. And it was really cool that we were kind of looking at all kinds of different technologies. And at that point, we were looking at doing an online. We were looking at doing an online, record store, And that was one of the things that they were going to have me do. And the biggest problem at that point, which was the record labels decided that they were not wanting to participate. They were very fearful of losing their edge being a distribution network to this new media of being able to distribute music, get sales and, take away from the ability to manipulate and this is my assessment, but manipulate distribution channels and sales numbers and all the other stuff and have to be actual exacting, because if you're going to digital.
That's always a recurring theme that you see within the industry is, a lot of emerging artists or younger artists these days don't really understand the dynamic of the industry, but their slow demise over the last 20, 25 years is from a series of missteps over time, missed opportunities.
Exactly.
Because they didn't want to change. The profits were good, things were roaring, why change? And that ability to not adapt ultimately has led to this collapse. But that's an important lesson for artists that are out there. You have to adapt to the marketplace, and that takes on a lot of forms, and we're going to delve into that.
Yeah, so deep because most people don't realize Apple was not made because of technology. Apple was made because they were able to, Steve Jobs, having his relationships in Hollywood, was able to negotiate deals with the major labels to be able to provide music for iTunes. Because if that music wasn't there, people would not have bought into the iPod. And if there's iPod wasn't there, people would not have, looked at getting an iPhone and blah, 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 that. Because at that time, they were actually about ready to go under. Steve Jobs came in just at the last minute before they kind of were sinking. That's why I was part of all that fun stuff happening in the 90s. So that's kind of all.
I was actually reading his biography there, and they were saying that Apple had barely over 60 days of operating capital before they completely went under.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're referencing there. And it was right on the brink, and that one product saved it, and the content with it.
Well, actually, Microsoft came in and saved the day with a $100 million investment. They didn't want to see Apple go away, ironically.
Well, when you're Microsoft, you can just write a check like that. It's not not that.
Couple of different reasons for that. So the official announcement was they didn't want to lose sales of Office, because it was that Office was the biggest selling application on the Mac. But the other one was that they were under so much scrutiny for monopoly at that point.
Antitrust and all that. Yeah,
they didn't want to see their number two, which was an easily manageable.
And the target would just go right on the back.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then they would go. Then they would lose to Linux, which could have been a really big threat to at that particular time would have been a big threat to Microsoft, because they wouldn't have been able to control Linux. They could control Apple at that point.
That must have been quite a pill for Steve Jobs to swallow. They're having to accept the help of the rival.
Yeah.
And actually, it's very interesting what happened to that whole thing. In a future show, a little teaser for you guys, we're going to have one of the VPs of marketing for DreamWorks and Capitol Records talking about this transition to digital and how he saw this in the 90s and early 2000s when he was working at Capitol, and the types of opportunities the record companies didn't see. But that's definitely for another episode. But tell me, when that transition happened to digital, how did you guys take advantage of it, or not take advantage of it?
Well, the thought I just had, and I wonder how much influence it had, go back to the whole kind of jam band scene in the 90s, and even earlier than that. Like, part of the culture was, taping live shows of Grateful Dead, Fish, whatever, Widespread Panic, and trading tapes, and then later CDs, and then later digital. And that was, in that particular ecology, that was fine. The bands encouraged it, and it was just live shows. And then once Napster came along and all of that, and MP3 sharing, people kind of started doing the same thing, same kind of outbranching of that sharing culture. But now you're doing it with content that's not necessarily, condoned by the purveyors. So I don't know. I'm interested. I never really thought about how one may have influenced the other, and if one would have been around without the other. Like, if people would just kind of think of trading music online either way.
Well, kind of to go back to your first question there, Paul, and I'll kind of segue into the other question, Paul. PV and PB. Essentially, I was working at a online record label, Spin Records, at the time in the 1998-99 time frame, which was the really the forefront. And the whole thing about Spin Records was it was a farm label, and that label would take bands and develop them, and then at some point pass them on to major labels for them to kind of go through that process. And we've seen a few bands, G-Love and Special Sauce. Probably the biggest one that came out of there was Alien Ant Farm, and a couple other bands that kind of came from that. And the long story short, one thing it did provide at that time was a very convenient way to reach a fan base and build a fan base. So initially, as it started off with, only a few bands were kind of taking advantage of the digital. So things like getting email addresses and sending them your website and all the other fun stuff. If you could afford to have a web page, you were very unique. So you'd really kind of come alive. Now that's such a process, and there's so many different bands that, hit up everybody about the same thing. I get all the time on Twitter, listen, check out my beats, or, come on and sign on and check out my band. That's not enough because everyone's doing the same thing now. Yeah. But in those days, that was pretty much, if you were able to do that, that was pretty revolutionary.
I think that's one of the really interesting shifts over the span of time from, say, the 40s and 50s to today. And this is something we're going to talk about with Don Barnes next week from 38 Special. But how you had bands, really since the dawn of time, the only way they could make it was to perform night after night and perfect their craft and grind it out in the clubs. Then you see in the 90s and early 2000s the rise of MySpace and all of these different social media and all these things where people are literally getting massive... Yeah, and people getting signed off of just having 1 million MySpace followers. Now the internet's so saturated, it's gone right back to you have to grind it out in the clubs to make any kind of footprint because social media is saturated. The only way you're going to stand out these days is that stage show. And so
connecting with your real audience.
Yeah, but I think that's such a great positive thing for artists because now, again, it's all about the art, the connection, the emotion, the music, the passion, and the people in the room. These real experiences that you're not going to get sitting on your smartphone, in a dark room crying in the corner. And so I think now more than ever that brings people together, and I think that's something that bands should be encouraged about. Do you guys agree? Or?
I agree. I'm going to shamelessly plug your app, man, because I personally think it's exceptionally cool that, let me kind of go back in the day. Trying to find where you could play, especially if it was out of town and you didn't go to these clubs regularly, was a bitch. You didn't know, if you went to Santa Cruz, there's clubs there. Who do you know that knows how to get to a club there? You didn't have an active list, or trying to get a list cost a ton of money. And now you got an app, like Showslinger, that you could actually simply find out about where all the clubs are. And then not only that, you can interact with these different club booking managers. So I think that's pretty amazing in this day and age, and that gives you a chance. And then you're able to provide the kind of tools and marketing resources to generate some attention. So kind of going back to your question there, I think that. In this day and age, live is very pertinent because people I think authenticity is really a big part of what's going on here, and being able to have tools in this day and age that can get you in front of people and to get that interactivity, that is going to be, more important than ever now.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. And so that really ties in with the theme of the entire show, which is essentially musicians have to be entrepreneurs and business people first, and artists second, which I know is kind of a hard thing to swallow as an artist, but that's the reality. And so by giving these folks the tools to do it themselves, we're enabling them to keep more money in their pocket, get more traction faster. But that's what the entire show is about, is we're going to show step by step how these artists can develop different parts of their career and really get to that next level, whether it's starting your first tour, putting your merch together. Should you get signed? Should you get this? Should you get that? Basically, every part of your little business, whether you're a weekend warrior or whether you're the touring pro, we're going to dive real deep and real specifically into these subjects. So that's something that I'm pretty excited about. And so,
and so are we.
Yeah, us too. I mean, one of the things I always wonder about is this kind of movement towards being self-sufficient. On one hand, that's great. On the other hand, you're going to grind it out in the clubs. Back in the day, you were grinding it out in the clubs, and if you make it, it's a huge record deal in millions of dollars, seemingly. But then, as we know, most of these musicians end up getting screwed over very badly by the record companies. So I'm wondering, if you do things right and are able to adapt to today's environment, probably you're not making the kind of money you were making in the 70s.
Your quality of life would be better.
Yeah, well, and that's probably like maybe you're not making as much money on paper, but probably at the end of the day, you're keeping more of like the real sum of it. Is that your experience? Hello, Paul?
Oh, looks like Paul's checking in. Sometimes with technology, we got to kind of wait for it to engage us here. So I think that's a good point, though, Paul. I think that you were Paul B. PB. I got to start calling Paul around here because like everyone's heads turn. But I think that is a big thing. In fact, I've always said, would Jimi Hendrix, with his type of artist philosophy, would that be a type of behavior that would be successful in this day and age?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it would be successful, but would he? I don't know. He probably got taken advantage of even back then. Today, I don't know. I wonder if he would have been savvy enough to
I don't think so, because he was high on drugs. On stage or off stage, he was quite often. He needed to be handheld through most of that process. So I think that would have been the case. Are we back, Paul? PV?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, just to circle back real quickly, what I was saying is that I think that that's a very important point that the other Paul made, is that in this new industry, you're going to see very, very few, Taylor Swift's, Aerosmith's, U2's, whatever, but you're going to see a more egalitarian system where people can really control their own destiny. Like you said, there are going to be fewer rock stars, but that, if you call them middle-class musicians, those guys may be making $60,000, $100,000 a year doing what they love, controlling and maybe their art and their destiny.
And it's probably easier to maintain a longer career where you don't just burn out.
Exactly.
But you don't think but Justin Bieber has a lifetime career in music?
He's already had a pretty long career.
He does, actually. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 1 year of that guy's life has got to be like 10 years of somebody else. But I think, there's a lot of negativity in the industry, but I think the positive thing is that you can control more of what you're doing. You just have to do it the right way. And that's exactly what this show is talking about. That's exactly why we're here. We're going to show you how to do that on subsequent episodes. So I wanted to thank Paul and Florentino from EnterTalk Radio for being on my first show. I'm excited to be here. We're going to be back next week with Don Barnes from 38 Special. My name is Paul Nikolas. This is Going to Get Loud on EnterTalk Radio. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on EnterTalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.